and yeah, just talking about, training female athletes. Like, since we last talked, you've continued to pick up steam. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that this is something that so many women and just people care about?
Well, I think it's for a couple of reasons. I think first and foremost, I don't want to fearmonger this, but I do think people are starting to realize, okay, we do have a pediatric ACL injury epidemic. And girls in ages the 12 to 14 range, super young, are starting to tear their ACLs. And I think people are starting to realize, okay, maybe what Erica is saying is important, and there's something to strength training, and we need to make time for this and prioritize it. Even though sports schedules are very busy now, some girls are practicing 4 or 5 days a week and then they have extra skill sessions. I think people are starting to realize, wait a minute, we maybe need to cut back on something to make time so that our daughters can get that strength development, work on how to decelerate properly, and get them healthy for the long run, especially if they want to have a long career. A lot of girls aspire to play at the Division I level. And let me tell you, it's gotten way more physical and fast paced than in years past. So I think people are starting to realize, yes, we need it for the injury reduction, but we also need it to keep up. We want to get fast. We want to get strong. And they realize that there's a bunch of performance benefits, which is what I like to focus on most in my messaging is, hey, let's focus on building your strength, developing your speed, working on better change of direction and agility. And then as a nice byproduct, you're less likely to get injured and you'll stay healthy. So that's been my focus. And I think people are starting to catch on more, and it gives me hope.
Yeah, and I definitely grew up in the world where it's like, oh, females are just more at risk because of the Q angle and like the stuff that you and Carmen Bott have been continuing to put out. It's like Carmen literally wrote it in the article. She's like, bullshit, like stop. Like, and you had said it in a tweet, and it was mentioned on Mike Boyle's podcast where you're like, it's not a female ACL problem as much as it's a weak female. Like you're tearing your ACL because you're weak and you haven't been in the weight room.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like we can all argue, okay, well, females are more predisposed. They have the Q angle, the wider hips, and the poor landing mechanics. But there comes a point where we need to just focus on what we can control. And that is going to help us reduce our chance. And Dr. Tim Hewitt is a great academic in this space where he says, look, if female athletes strength train year round, I'm not just talking in the off season for 2 months, but
Yeah.
year round, they can reduce their risk of ACL by 50%. Man, that's a good fighting chance. We can't fully prevent 100%. That's not how injuries work. But if you can reduce by 50%, I mean, that is a large amount, and you have some good odds in your favor. So I think now people just need to really prioritize it. And I think the in-season work is the most important. I think, everyone's finding a program in the off season at a bare minimum now, but I was having a conversation the other day with another strength coach, and we both agreed that continued in-season strength training is a competitive advantage now.
Oh my gosh.
Because not everyone's doing it.
Right? Which is just the craziest part because I went to college in 2005 to 2009 and we didn't have a strength coach. I went to a Division III school and I did it on my own with my offensive line coach writing the program. Luckily for me, he owned a gym and was like actually knew what he was doing, competed in powerlifting. And I didn't want to lift, but like you said, I know this is going to be my competitive advantage. Fast forward 20 years, most people know the importance of training in season. But I think we do kind of incubate ourselves with, all right, we know it's important. I just had an athlete that I worked with during the summer. He's getting ready I was getting him ready for football season. He goes and trains with the team. He injured his hamstring lifting, and the coaches now they have him practicing, playing games, but they're like, oh, just don't weight train. Like I talked to his mom. I was like, that is a recipe for disaster because if practicing and playing games alone were enough, we wouldn't have to strength train. Like there's a reason that lifting is a part of the schedule for athletes.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point you bring up. I think there is still some fear with people around in-season weight training because they think it's going to overuse an athlete. Or in the youth space, I hear, oh, well, they're doing too much already. How do we Do we add more onto what they're already doing? Are they going to get hurt? But I've actually found the opposite. The irony of all this is when you in-season strength train, obviously it has to be with a professional. They have to understand the proper dosing with sets and reps and exercise selection. But if you're in-season strength training, you actually can recover faster than your teammates who aren't training
Yes.
because you can handle the loads better. And I have girls who are playing in the ECNL, which is the top youth soccer league in the country, and they practice 4 days a week with their team, and they make it into me 1 to 2 times a week. They're never sore, and people are shocked. They're like, "Wait a minute, like you're training during 4 times a week practice?" And they're like, "Yeah, like we recover faster, we can handle the amount of minutes played more. We also do in-season speed training so they can handle those exposures in the game too." So I found the opposite, which is the irony of it all. And I think for a lot of people, it sounds counterintuitive. Like you add extra training, but you'll feel better in the process. But I can't reiterate enough that it has to be with a professional under supervision, whether like a really diligent remote program or preferably in person, but they need to understand how to work around the in-season schedule and everyone will be okay. And in all the years I've been doing this, we haven't had any issues with in-season athletes. People have thrived. We haven't had any ACL injuries during in-season. And yeah, I mean, there's something to it, something to continuing to build your muscle and not atrophy. Because a lot of girls, they'll train for 2 months in the off season, and then the soccer season is 10 months. So some of them I don't see for 10 months, and then they
Golly.
come back and I'm like, you slowed down, you got weaker. And meanwhile, the core group who in season strength train, they're thriving and they're doing things at age 15, 16 that other girls can't be doing.
That's where it's all like you said about the dosage. And that's just you being smart about the strength training. And any strength coach listening to this, hopefully you understand this already. And if you're in the private space, like whatever, just understand it's the dosage and how much you give to them and what you give to them and when you give it to them. Just like 2 Tylenol takes care of a headache, 22 can put you in the hospital, 12 is also inappropriate. Like making sure that you're dosing. All right, how often are we touching max strength? How often are we touching? I mean, it's the same stuff that Louis Simmons has talked about with dynamic effort, repetition effort, strength effort, that now Hunter Eisenhower has, rebranded it as the force system. But those are the same exact things, like touching on those qualities that your body has to be able to have, and using the tools and the implements in the weight room of Coach Bondarchuk with just general prep is an amazing way to do it. Vitruve has been my choice for VBT for years now, not only because of the encoder and how well it works with the app, and you can film movements with the camera and get live variable feedback in real time if you so choose to on the app, but the fact of the amount of content they have been pushing out to help coaches better understand VBT. It's not only just to move the bar faster. You can be working on what's the appropriate load for high rep sets based off velocity loss. You can be looking at velocity loss threshold between sets, in between reps. VBT is not just moving the bar fast. It's moving the bar fast with heavy weights. It's not just moving lightweight fast. And Vitruve has been at the forefront educating coaches on VBT and how to do it the right way. Check them out in the link down below. Hawkin Dynamics is my preferred choice for force plates and for handheld dynamometers. Made in the USA up in Maine, I have been using them since 2020 when I was at Towson University. Still use them at Goldfinch today, and I brought the plates to the high school that I've trained at. We will use the plates and transport them when we train athletes at the many different high schools that we currently work at. As I said, they are a handheld dynamometer as well with the True Strength. You can assess athlete internal, external rotation, hip, AB, adduction, calf strength, hip, whatever you want to assess, you can do with the True Strength. It also has the ability to pair with the difference striking machine, so now you can see single strike, multiple strike. Check out Hawkin Dynamics down in the link down below.
Yeah, the dosing is so key. And I think it's really important to just bring load management into the discussion. And we've been doing a lot with RPE, but also some of my girls do get the GPS sensor. So we do have more objective data. I do prefer that more, but if we can at the very least do RPE, and girls are rating my sessions maybe like a 5 or 6 out of 10 during like the first few weeks of an in-season program, like that's perfect. It's like I don't want you to be a 10 out of 10 before you go off to practice, because a lot of them are lifting with me before they go to practice. So I want it to be a good warm up for them while also making incremental strength and speed gains. And I'm a big fan of Coach Steph Grubbs, who's now with the Astros. I'm sure
Yeah.
you know who that is, but she is a big fan of microdosing the speed training. So we'll do sprints in our warm up before a lift. We'll do one sprint, maybe two, depending on the week, full rest time in between. And then we get right into the lift, and people have done really well with that. And they've also been the fastest on their team come the end of the season. A lot of girls who stop the in-season strength training, they lose their speed towards the end of the season. And it's like, well, that's the most important time to continue to get fast, because we have like big games, we have showcases going on. So that's another reason why it's so important to just continue this and go about it in a smart microdose way.
Let's speak on that a little bit more, because we got some basketball strength coaches. We have, a lot of them in, the college world that is their reality, where they have to train before practice and they have to try to steal ways to microdose, even if it's in the warmup. That's something that Jay DeMayo had talked about, where your warmup is maybe 6 to 12 minutes of actual training that you can touch on qualities that maybe you didn't get during the lift. Talk about some strategic ways that you're able to do those things so our coaches and listeners can steal from that and be able to implement it.
Yeah, for sure. So I really like just really focus on technique for the lifts. So we'll do like really low rep and sometimes moderate to high intensity, depending on what point of the in-season program we're in. We're still going to eventually lift some pretty heavy loads, but the reps are so low that it's not going to tax their nervous system or make them sore before practice. So I like to keep reps 6 reps or lower for a lot of like the in-season bigger lifts. And then maybe for some of the isolated stuff, we might go a little bit higher, but it's those isolated lifts aren't so taxing on the nervous system. And then for speed, I found that a good amount is 1 to 2 high speed exposures a week. And again, it's not taxing the nervous system too much, but getting them fired up and feeling explosive before practice while still getting those small incremental improvements. And I also like to incorporate some quick plyos in the warm up. So again, keep the reps super short, super explosive, get them nice and springy, and then we just move on. We're not doing plyometrics for minutes on end and just making their feet sore. So it's just very intentional work, high intent and low rep.
Anybody that was listening, like, okay, how do you handle doing any like posterior chain stuff, like addressing hamstring in the lift because like, man, Erica, I'm nervous about, I don't want a hamstring pull during practice, right? Like, what are some techniques? Because for me personally, it was like, all right, I'm going to touch that stuff days before, because we lifted before practice. So I was like, all right, I gotta touch on this. What's going to be the day? We would do it on Monday for a football team, and it would be in the morning. And it was just, I had to pick, right? Like there was no perfect world, because the football coach and practice schedule, like that's what we had to do. During camp, we would address the post chain real heavy on a day where we knew we'd be off. And so that was just eventually the bullet that I had to swallow. What are you doing?
Yeah, very similar. So I don't go past Wednesday for that stuff. So a lot of girls have games on Saturday and Sunday, but for some of my Wednesday girls, it's like, look, like they're coming in once a week. So I still want to get some hamstring stuff in. I have to work with what I got. But again, it's not going to be really high rep that we blow the hamstrings out. It's going to be like just enough of a dose to still get them to progress, get some strength, and still be ready for game time. And then if I have girls coming in Thursday, which isn't a lot right now, I usually recommend everyone comes in earlier in the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But Thursday, we'll do some more like acceleration work, maybe like one top speed sprint, and then more of like an upper body explosive workout. So that's kind of how we work around it. I've had to get really creative with the schedule, because in the youth soccer space, it's practice Mondays through Thursdays and then games on the weekend. So it's tough, but with what we're doing now, it seems to be going well. So, but that doesn't mean we won't change things if things come up, but overall, that's how I structure it.
one of the things that you talked about there made me think of is in the summer, I was training a girl for her soccer season. And we made some of her, when we did her max velo, like her fly 10 work or fly float flies, I tried to incorporate some sort of gamesmanship with it. Like, all right, hey, you're building up right now because you're trying, like you're a defender, and you're like, all right, I'm going to see what's going on. Okay, now I got to go and accelerate. Like just trying to teach her that to learn how to apply it within the sport of what she'd be doing. Or same thing with a fly float fly. Have you found there to be any special technique, like benefit to doing that stuff, or am I just like grasping at straws trying to do that?
No, I think there's so many aspects to speed. I think, yes, you need to work on more of your structured drills, working on mechanics, and then also doing your time sprints. But then there comes a time where within the program, you have to add the reactive component because that is the game. They're making a decision and then chasing something or running onto a through ball. So I like to incorporate all of it into a speed program. And usually with an off-season program, I'll start really general in the beginning with speed where it's more structured. We're doing our time drills. We're also racing and timing at the same time, which tends to get the most intensity out of everyone I found.
Yep.
And then in the next phase, we'll do more of those like reactive top speed sprints where there might be a girl in front of another girl and the girl in front initiates the drill and then the girl chases and they run 40 yards all out and it's a chase drill. Or maybe I'll do like a visual cue where I'll wave my hand up and then they go. So just really mixing it up and changing the stimuli because in soccer it's so unpredictable and chaotic, and we can't ignore that the cognitive piece is a piece of speed because I've seen some girls who they'll have the fastest fly tens, but when we turn it into a reactive drill, they're a step behind.
Mm.
So just because you look faster on paper doesn't mean you're always faster in the game. So that's when I realized, okay, we need to start to incorporate a lot of this reactive stuff within our speed training.
And that's a lot of stuff that Tony Vellani has talked about, game speed stuff, where it's like if you lose that first step, I don't know if you've seen the video
I
that he
love
did.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, like the stuff where he's like, all right, hey, he'll put a D lineman, that's pretty fast, not like your nose guard, but he'll put like an edge or a D end and put him and have it be like a DB or somebody fast will be like an arm's length behind him. And then he'll have everybody in the group, and he's just doing this as a demonstration. Hey, where do you think this skill guy is going to pass him? And he's explaining the drill, and then like Tony will walk 20 yards away and be like, this is where it'll happen. And the D lineman gets to start the drill, so he's a step ahead of, and he proves like, look, it takes 20 yards to make up for that lost yard. Like that's why it's so important. And that was something really, really, really important for me to first learn about. So anybody listening, Tony's episode is linked down below. He's been a genius with all of this stuff. And one of the things that I actually really like about Tony, he doesn't take all the credit. He's like, I learned this from Anquan Bolden. I learned this from Travis Kelce. I learned this from, like, he's over here saying like Darrell Rivas taught me this. Like these athletes that I was training, they made me better. And that's so rare in our field. We need more of that.
Yeah, I agree. And I love Tony Vellani. I mean, he's fantastic. And speaking of getting credit, so one thing I've learned recently that makes so much sense is from Carmen Bott, but just making sure we're building our athletes' awareness and broadening their reality instead of having them always look down all the time. And she says that all of her plyometric drills, she makes them keep their eyes up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that makes so much sense. And I've also found that it helps with when we're doing like jumping and landing mechanics, their landing mechanics clean up if their eyes are up because then they have better posture. So yeah, I give credit to Carmen for that one. That's absolutely brilliant. And I think too often we see trainings, especially on social media in the youth space, my God, kids' heads are always down and they have such a narrow focus of the world. And I'm like, that's not sports. That's not sports. If you're in a field or court-based sport, your head has to be on a swivel the whole game. So I took that from Carmen Bott. Every time we're doing plyometrics or even a deceleration or change of direction drill, your eyes got to be up. We got to be looking forward and we got to be comfortable. Don't worry, the ground is there. You don't need to look down. I always tell my girls that the ground's there. It's not disappearing. But yeah, I think that's so brilliant from her. And yeah, I give all the credit to her for that. It's been really successful for us.
I laugh at that a lot because when I was at Harvard in 2011, Tim Mullen, who's still there now, when as interns we were all we would do a lift together as a team and to understand the new movements that the coaches were putting in. And when we were doing ladder drills in the beginning of our warm up, he was like, "Hey, is the secret to like all the world's problems down on the ground?" I was like, I don't understand what he's saying. He's like, stop looking down when you do these drills. Like, same thing you're saying, get your eyes up, because sport, you have to have your eyes up and your feet moving in the ground instead of you only looking at that. And there is, like I said, simplicity and brilliancy in that because of how much it'll carry over. And we could nerd out on the sensory motor aspect of it all, but just understand that that's what it's there for, and driving that input and stimulus to your body through that, visual sensory motor cortex.
You're right. And we can go down a rabbit hole on this because, yes, it's great for performance and having spatial awareness and ability to scan and make fast decisions. But there's also a lot of research on how slower reaction speeds and not being aware of your surroundings can lead to ACL injuries. So Jason Avedijan wrote a paper, I
Yes.
think it was in 2021, and he has such amazing work. And there is something to the brain's impact on ACL injuries and athletes' inability to react fast and how it goes down to their lower body mechanics. And it makes a lot of sense because if you're a step behind, then you might take a misstep or compensate. So yeah, that's why I think the reactive drills are so key and these kids getting their heads up. And it's why I preach, like, at the younger ages, you need to play. You need to be in a lot of different environments. You need to learn how to react and make decisions in new situations. And I feel like it's going in one ear and out the other because a lot of parents still sign their kids up for these structured trainings. Their heads are down. They know exactly where they're going. And I'm like,
It
okay,
looks nice to the parent who's sitting on the sideline, like, oh, look at that coach over there. They've got a blue cone over here and a green disc over here and an orange disc. And Erica's over there trying to tell the girls to understand context and chaos. And it doesn't look as clean. Like but I'm saying that because I'm fighting the same fight. And I think the good strength coaches out there listening to this are like nodding their heads like, yes, I'm dealing with the same thing. Powerlift has been my choice for strength and conditioning equipment ever since I got into the field. Right now, I still have their racks, I have their barbells, I have their bumpers, specialty bars, and we have the IMTP device at Goldfinch, and it's been great for us because it's allowed us to free up the rack where we used to have to do the IMTPs. Now we use that IMTP device, roll it around, we've created more space. You have to check them out. Doesn't matter if in your college, high school, pro, tactical, or private, they have the ability to make whatever customizations and whatever adjustments you need. I was a part of the weight room that was the 32 brand new rack facility at Iowa football. You see what they did for TCU football. Doesn't matter how big, how small, whatever your customizations are, Powerlift is number one in the exercise equipment space for a reason. Check them out in the link down below. TeamBuildr has been my trusted source for online software programs for my athletes since 2019. Since then, they've continued to grow. They have this new practice integration where practice planning can integrate with the sport coach. You have your sports science, your AMS, the questionnaires. They've continued to evolve and keep giving you the things that you need. It has made my life easier as a strength coach. I want the same for you. You do not need to keep printing on lift cards. Please, printing on lift cards in Excel, you don't need to do that. If you need help being able to purchase it, they have a pre-written grant on their website. They're also part owners in the Plyomat with Coach Rich Burnett. So if you need to get a good device that can accurately and validly and quickly get your jump height and ground contact time, so now you can get RSI, Plyomat's a great choice. We utilize that at Goldfinch. Check TeamBuildr. Check them out in the link down below. Please stop printing on lift cards. It's going to make your life easier. It's going to make your athlete's life easier. It's easier to program on the back end. Check out TeamBuildr in the link down below.
Yep. I saw a funny meme the other day from a skills coach that I really like in the Tampa area. And he was like, just because you're a coach that lays out the rainbow of cones and you tell them to just run through it doesn't mean you're a good coach. I was like, that is so good. But I'm curious what your thoughts on this are. I've been really wrestling with, okay, what defines a good coach? And I think how parents define a good coach is very different than what like true practitioners would say. But I think parents would say, oh, a good coach is someone who like over coaches and really instructs my kid, and it looks like they're doing something. But I would argue, and I'm curious your opinion on this, I would argue a good coach is someone who can set up the environment to get the result they want, with maybe 1 to 2 like big cues you use of like big glaring mistakes, and then move on and like change the drill based on that and see if they adjust. I think that's good coaching, but a lot of parents will be like, no, we want you cueing, we want you
ABC,
instructing.
Erica, always be coaching.
But it's like, especially with a younger kid, it's like all those cues, all those instructions in one ear and out the other. And I've experimented with it with my 10-year-olds just for fun to see what would happen. So usually when we teach acceleration, we'll do like a chase. So if someone's in front and then someone has to chase, I see aggressive arm swing. I see them pushing the ground away. I see good mechanics in that drill, but it's a game. And then one time I tried to teach, okay, here's where you put your arm. Here's this. I lost them after a minute.
Yes.
But parents would want me to do it that way. And I'm like, no, I'm losing them. I'm losing them.
I couldn't agree with you more. A good coach can say less and set up great drills, and is then an expert at how to progress and regress from that baseline of, okay, you need this, you need this. Let me say fewer things, give you those very few short digestible things. Because I'll never forget, during one of the first sprint temers during COVID, I was, had more time to sprint like everybody else. And so I sent Tucker a video, and his first comment was, stop thinking about the 85 things you're thinking about. Like, but it was, oh, I need my knee here, my hand here. And it was just like, and from there, I got better and better at it because I stopped thinking as much. And like you said, yeah, there's obviously a technical model that we need to chase after, and that's what your drills are for. But then at some point, you have to be unconsciously competent at it. You have to stop thinking about it and just learn to do and repattern it and feel it. And that's what a good coach can set up drills for you to feel it internally, just like you're not always going to be squatting, benching, whatever, looking at a mirror. You need that sensory motor feedback to understand what's going on, to train proprioceptors and the muscle spindles in your body to be able to train. So I could not agree with you more. And that's why I'm just very upfront with parents at first before they train with me, like, hey, this is how we're going to train. Like a lot of that stuff, if I pull out the cones, one thing that I did do to try to have a little bit fun with the kids to meet them where they were, I'd set up 2 different boxes next to each other. So it'd be, a blue cones of a 5x5 box, and then orange cones of a 5x5 box. And I'd say, all right, if it's blue, you're doing the inside X drill. If it's orange, you're doing the perimeter drill. So there was a little bit of thinking as they went through it. And that was kind of like my bridge the gap, like make coaches kind of happy because of the blueness and the orangeness of different cones. And you could also see the kid doing the rep slower. It's like, no, that's inside X drill. Do it. And I was like, listen, the same way that you have to know what the coverage is if you're a receiver and that DB's playing, cover 2 and he's pressing you, or if he's bailing in cover 3, you still have to be able to run the route, know what everything is supposed to be going on. Same thing in soccer. If you're supposed to have a through pass, see what's going on, like that little bit of context can slow down the body when in reality it shouldn't.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I really think that's who the true practitioners are, is they're setting up the drills to get the physical result they want. And I think kids need it now more than ever, because just with how like social media is and just society, it's like they're given all the answers, like in their algorithm, they're fed information constantly, so they can't even think for themselves in the first place. So if I'm going to set up a speed or agility drill for my younger ones, I want them to think for themselves. I want them to have decision-making skills and to be creative too. I think creativity is also dying in sports as well. And I had a really cool guest on my podcast, Joel. Oh my gosh, I forget his last name, but he's a creativity researcher. And he said that creative athletes are going to have an edge and be the future of sports.
Heck yeah.
Because now with AI and all the tech and how teams can study formations in other teams and how they play, we have to have creative players rise to the occasion to surprise opponents when they studied film and they think they know what you're going to do. But if you have a creative player, and better yet, a creative team tactically, you're going to win in the future. And I think that's such a good argument. I was like, my jaw dropped. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense.
It's like what Mike Tyson said. Everybody's got a plan until you punch him in the face. Like, you like, oh, well, based off of this, you're going to have to do this. Well, what if I don't? Like, it's just like if you're playing chess against somebody that really gets it, or if you're playing blackjack and it's like, you never hit with 17. I don't care. I'm hitting on 17. Like, it can change. There's not these set specific rules. So I couldn't agree with that more. And there is so much power and ability in being creative with that. And like, yeah, I firmly agree with you on that.
I'll give an example of this. So when I was in college playing soccer at Johns Hopkins University, so we still had like teams studying us, like during like the NCAA tournament, our opponent would watch our game. So in the semifinals, our opponent watched our game before they played us in the finals, and they thought they knew what our offense was going to do. But the cool part about our offense, and our assistant coach always told us this, hey, we have 3 of you up top, but don't be married to you playing left forward, you playing center forward, you playing right forward. You guys intermingle up top. So if you, Erica, on left forward, if you want to go switch over to the right and cross and confuse the defenders, do it. And we did it. And the other team, their defenders were so confused. They were yelling at each other. They're like, oh my gosh, like, hurry, get her. Like, where's she going? And it was so fun. We were just confusing people. And that's that like tactical team creativity that I think we need to train more within like small-sided game design, and coaches, again, setting up that environment to inspire that creativity.
Have you noticed when your athletes are quiet, that's when you've hit, it's like when they're not chit chatty and it's like, wait a minute, I introduced something new. I'm not giving you lots of clues. I'm just saying that was wrong, or like, no, do it again. And it gets so like, that was the biggest thing that I realized in my time when I was running groups, was the minute it got quiet is like, now they're thinking, now we're actually looking and getting the things that we wanted to, because they have to be dialed in instead of just this route going through the motions. And it's the same thing that I wrote the blog about, the better warm-up, where my former assistant Kyle Hashimoto, who learned this from Zach Daycant down at TCU, instead of just like high knees going forward, heel up grab, toe up toe touch, it was you do a movement in place and then you do a traveling drill. You do a movement in place, you do a traveling drill. In the first few times that we introduced it, it was like, wait a minute, what's going, like they were shocked and they were locked in. And then when you just change up what, like, cause it doesn't matter if you do a heel up grab and then you do high knee run or you do a squat, like it does not matter. We're diving in the minutia at that point. But that's how I was getting the kids to be quiet and like really, really pay attention to what's going on.
That's so interesting. And I've definitely seen that too, where you'll have a game where you explain the task they have to complete. And then they're like, oh, like, so you're not really giving us the answers. We just have to like do this task. But I don't know if you've seen this too. Sometimes they'll ask a million questions. They'll be like, well, do we need to do this? Do we need to do this? And I'm like, guys, like, just do the task. I don't care how it's done. Just explore. Okay.
Seriously.
So we'll do like, I'll give an example. We'll do an aggression game to get girls comfortable with contact and getting physical. And so it'll be a 1v1 situation where one girl is guarding a cone and then the other girl has to get it. And there's no rules. It's like, you just got to grab the cone from the other person. No rules. You can foul, like you can roughhouse and push. And they'll be like, wait, so can we like push with our hands? Can we wrestle? And I'm like, yep. And then they just go and they don't hold back. And I feel like they've been holding this in for a while because they're just not used to these types of drills.
No, they're not. And so 2 things on the contact prep. The first one, I was utilizing the different striking machine is a football, typically just like you can use it for linemen practicing punching, but it's also really good for post-activation potentiation if you're doing like a upper body bench press, French contrast style stuff. But I started using it with contact prep for that soccer girl that I was training to get used to like winning the ball. And then when we would go and do we played a tennis ball game with, say you've got 5 athletes, you set out 6 cones and 5 tennis balls on top of them. And the disc cone, so the tennis ball can stay on it. You could put it on different heighted stuff too, plyo boxes, whatever you want. And each athlete starts at a tennis ball. And then the objective is you have to run to the open cone, put your tennis ball down. And there was 2 college soccer girls that like, I was letting a little bit of contact go. And one of the girls was like kind of pissy about it. She was like, and like again, because it's not really allowed, right? I was like, I'm allowed. And like, so the rep's done. She's kind of pissy. I was like, I'm going to let that happen, Alana. Like there's contact in soccer. And so but to her credit, next rep, she's like, all right, word, these are the rules. Like now she started getting a little chippy and like, there was no fouls, but it's like, there's that contact and that aggression in soccer. You're going to be fighting to win a ball. Like you got to go and do it at some point. Here at Strength Coach Network, we pride ourselves on giving you the best quality information from strength and conditioning coaches and practitioners that still work with or have worked with athletes. This is not theory. We are always about giving you practical information that you can apply day one the minute you're done listening to this. And you can check us out for a $1 trial in the link down below. Click that link and find out more about us. Vacations are meant for you to be outside doing things that you love and reconnecting with your family and your friends and recharging your battery. It is not meant for you to travel and listen to some coach talk in a conference hall and eat some food that you know really isn't the best thing that you want to be eating. Take back your vacations and do so with a Strength Coach Network annual membership. When you purchase an annual membership, you're going to get access to our course, Performance Coaching 101. In the subsequent years, it'll renew and you'll get access to 102 and 103. Each year, you're going to get access to 2 NSCA CEUs and 10 CSCCa CEUs. These CEUs will allow you to be able to learn from the comfort of your office. You'll be able to earn CEUs on your time rather than having to travel. Take back your vacation and be able to do this with a Strength Coach Network annual membership. Click the link down below for more information.
I love it. And I think you're right that they just don't get enough of this where they like can't hold back in these drills. And I get a lot of parents saying to me, my daughter needs to have more confidence. My daughter needs to play more aggressive and go into 50-50 balls. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to do the do and get into these contact drills that are harder than the game. Because that's where confidence is born, with playing aggressive. And no amount of me telling a girl, play more aggressive, like get in there, that's not going to help. So we have to get comfortable with contact and do it in situations that are going to be harder than the game.
Yeah, and like it's just not in society nowadays. Like, oh, you're not supposed to be in somebody's, but it's like, but in sport, you're gonna have to be. Like like you play a contact sport. It might not be a collision sport, but basketball, soccer, lacrosse is more of a collision sport. But like field hockey, you have to get used to making contact with another person's body and fighting them off while still running and trying to not trip over an implement that is going to go into a net so you earn points.
Yeah, I agree. And even just beyond the physical benefits of these games, I mean, the mental piece is huge. I would say, especially for young men, young boys and men, they need to roughhouse. They need to learn how to let their aggression out, control their emotions. I don't think young boys are roughhousing enough anymore. And they don't know how to control their emotions because they're not able to let it out when they're young. So I don't know if you've seen that in the years you're coaching.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like it's with we'll wait for a group to start and the boys are like running everywhere and throwing a tennis ball. Right. And the girls are maybe just kind of sitting around in the corner and it's like, cool. But like, we got to get that out. You know what I mean? Like, okay, cool. We're going to be doing that. And it's like, listen, we're going to put that energy to work, like, period. Let's go and like, we're going to go and like you said, do the thing, but let's get that energy out. So that way you can go and play. And there is just so much power. And like, that was not good. We're going to do it again. Again, you don't have to be the dictator and disciplinarian and yelling like a parent want, but it's like, no, that rep wasn't good. Whatever the exercise is, let me change it for you. And even that, kids nowadays, like, wait a minute, that wasn't good enough. No, it wasn't. And it's okay to say that to kids because you can tell them truth and you can tell them in love when you've built up that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I don't know how it is with like boy athletes, but I found with female athletes, they're really focused and they take feedback very well. They want to know like how their technique is for like our heavier lifts, and they want to really get it down. And I've found that girls are really focused. They want to lift heavier and do better, which has been really cool to see, because I think a lot of girls now, they're just not lifting heavy enough or pushing themselves. And I think it comes down to like a lot of these strength coaches might be underestimating them. I've had a lot of discussions with Carmen about this, that girls just are being underestimated. And
Oh, heck yeah.
there are coaches, having these 14-year-old girls hang out at like 10-pound dumbbells forever. And I'm like, guys, like a lot of these girls can deadlift well over their body weight and do it really well. And I think we're really underestimating them.
Yeah, and they get surprised when my middle school, high school, college athletes, when I'm like, hey, that was easy. You need to do more weight. They kind of look at me and like, because I
Yeah.
might be the first person that said that. Like, listen, I don't know how that felt, but you just hit yourself in the chin with that barbell when you did your power clean. Like, that's too easy. Like, we're gonna add more weight. Or even the trap bar deadlift. Like, I know that's 185, but that was still really easy. Like, don't get stuck with these numbers. Like, it's okay to add weight. And same thing when I went to college. One of the best people that was about it was the guy Mike Chapman, who trained the volleyball team there. He's now down at LSU training the men's basketball team. But when the girls were doing dumbbell rows, I'll never forget it. He's like, and none of this dainty shit, y'all. He's like, everything's above a 45-pound dumbbell. Like, and it was just
Yeah.
ingraining this new pattern. Like, there can be a little bit of body English. Does it mean you look like a camel when you're doing your row? No. But does it mean it's perfect? Like, yeah, if you're grabbing something heavy and by the 8th rep, it might be it's not perfect. There's some body English. That's okay.
Yep. Yep. And I love the middle school girls, like especially like 7th and 8th grade girls. I mean, they do really well with loading heavy. I have some 8th grade girls that are well over 135-pound deadlift. Like they're crushing it, and
Yep.
they execute it really smoothly. And I think you also make a good point that I think it takes a coach to kind of call those girls out, who are underestimating themselves
Yep.
personally, and be like, look, that looked really easy for you. Like your technique was smooth. You like really like threw that weight up like easily. So let's go up maybe like 10 or 15 pounds on this and see how it goes. And I think it takes a coach to bring that out of a girl and to see, okay, those first few reps were great. Let's challenge it more. And then when the girl does do it with more weight, she's like, yeah, you were right. That was easy.
it and there's such beauty in
Every
that though,
time.
because they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. And it's like you unlocked a new level, and it's like,
Yeah.
hey, you can now do that. Like, now I need you to just expect more of yourself. And it's the same thing, like if we're trying to improve any of the sprint mechanics, like, hey, you're kind of like just kicking your heel up to your butt. Like, you're not making the lever shorter. You're now just, does your quad kind of hurts, doesn't it? She's like, yeah, it does. Yeah, okay, well, the way you're running we need to fix it by, hey, let's do this instead. Let's do some of these drills before your next rep. Oh, it feels better now. Like, good. But that's the job of a coach, is like, we should be liked, kind of like what you said about lifting is going to help you be stronger, more robust. And now in the end, you're not going to get as injured as much. Like, you should like me, but I don't want that to be the first thing as to why you want to train with me. Oh, coach, I can go and just hang out with Coach Erica and I don't have to lift hard things. It's like, no, I'm going to make you do the right thing. And I hope you like me, understanding that I'm telling you the truth and things that are there to help you. I'm not just saying words to say words to coach you. That's boring. If I'm talking to you, it's because I'm literally trying to help your performance. If I'm not talking to you, it's because I at this point don't care because you haven't cared.
Yeah. And that's the role of a coach. You have to correct and be picky with technique, especially when we're loading heavy. My goodness. And
Mm,
recently, I've had like during our training sessions, we don't have parents watch because I have a small space and it's just there's too much going on. But for our assessments, they are one on one. And now I offer the parent, hey, you want to stay and watch? I don't care. Like I want them to see that their kid is being instructed on
yep.
these lifts, and I'm also challenging them on them and showing them that they can do it and they can lift heavier. And I think parents really appreciate that when they can observe at least that first session and like know their daughter is in good hands and she's getting quality instruction.
Yeah, and that's something that, and maybe it's not a parent if you're working in the college sector. Maybe it's the sport coach. Like, and maybe you're doing that
Yeah.
over time of like, hey, look, this is what we're doing, but what you're doing is you're making deposits of leadership capital where it's like, oh, okay, I trust Erica. I trust insert the name of whoever the listener is out there of like, oh, I trust them to do their job and train our athletes the right way, because the parents, they want to know that their kids are being trained so they're healthy and they can play well, which sadly it's because some parents like the social status that their kid's good. Whole different rabbit hole of the sickness of that.
Oh yeah.
But the parents the coaches in college and high school, they care because they want their athletes to be healthy, strong, and fast, so that way they can keep winning and they can keep their job. Dasher has completely changed the game for how I'm able to time my athletes, whether I'm doing ACell, max velo, or curvilinear running. Had the blues, had the blacks at Goldfinch. Now that I have the silvers, this has saved me so much time in setup, breakdown if I'm going from Ankeny to Huxley, or from Ankeny to the Nevada location, or Nevada to Huxley. Like, wherever I got to go time athletes, it has made my ability to go from one place to another so much easier with the silvers. Strength coaches that have to go from one field to the other, or from the field to the court, this will help you save time. Now, in the spirit of saving time, you also have the ability to have an API interaction with TeamBuildr, so now you can see all the data on the back end. Seeing data on the back end, Dasher has a free app, a player profile app, that'll allow athletes to see their data. Over 6,000 coaches and athletes have done so. And if you want more than just the timing gates, if you check them out in the link down below, they have solutions to help you out with vertical jump, broad jump, RSI, all that. Check them out in the link down below.
Yeah, I think it's good to just showcase what you're doing, whether it is to the parent or the team coach, and then it's okay, like explain it, educate people. Like, I can't expect people to know why a deadlift is beneficial or they like know what it's working. So every time a girl comes in for an assessment, I tell her, okay, here's what muscle groups it works. Here's how it helps with soccer performance, and your hamstrings are your speed muscle, and they get all excited about speed. So just finding ways to relate to the athlete and explain the lifts, and then the parents sitting there and they're starting to get it. And we have to remember that a lot of the people we're dealing with, especially in the private sector, if it's parents, they're accountants, they're lawyers, they're real estate agents. They don't speak exercise science. And I think all these strength coaches assume, oh, they just need to know why strength is important, or they need to know why in-season strength is good. And I'm like, no, you have to actually explain it to people. And just kind of coming back to the in-season strength work, at the end of every summer off season, I send the parents out an email. Okay, off season's done. Here's what we've gained. Now, here's why it's important to continue. And I lay out all the reasons why. I like give a whole like slideshow presentation on this. And in years past, I didn't do that. I just assumed people knew they had to continue, but I was wrong. I was like, no, I actually need to explain it to these people because they're not an exercise science major. They're not a CSCS. They're not a strength coach. So they need to learn this stuff. It's like when I go get my tire repaired at an auto shop, like I don't know anything about cars. So I want these people to explain to me. It's the same thing with sports parents. They're just not in the industry and they just need to understand why we're doing what we're doing.
To that point about in season and off season, do you think, or excuse me, in your off season, if girls are not playing soccer, will you touch on more of the conditioning aspect of it, just time on feet, considering the time on feet that'll happen in season? Obviously when you're doing your in season training, like, hey, that bucket's getting filled at practice. And thankfully for me, the athletes, those soccer athletes I was talking about with you, sometimes they were playing 2 games a week. It could have been 3 games a week. Practice was 2 to 3 times a week. And it's like, that bucket is filled. You got time on your feet at practice. We're going to do max velo work. We'll do acceleration work. We'll work on some violent COD work and agility that you might not get in the game, because you might get more of the low level stuff. We'll just really hammer that stuff, knowing that you're going to fill that bucket elsewhere.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I actually have a lot of girls in the summer who their team doesn't practice anymore and they don't have games. Yeah, it's a handful of girls. And yeah, we absolutely do more conditioning. we do more agility. So we keep more like the anaerobic conditioning and a lot of like the speed endurance, the repeat sprint ability, because realistically, these girls just played for 10 months. I'm not too worried about their aerobic base. I don't really need to build their aerobic base because in the summer, they're also doing some skill session where they're getting that aerobic component. So I'm going to work more on like the conditioning where it's like the sprint ability and being able to repeat that and like shorter rest times. So yeah, we do conditioning in the off season for girls who aren't playing. And then in season, I've had to change my mind on this. So normally I don't condition in season, but if I have girls who aren't playing a lot of minutes, they're playing 10 minutes a game. Yeah, we're going to condition after that game so that they kind of meet that training load that their teammates just
Mm-hmm.
did who started and played the whole game, because I don't want girls to get detrained. They still need to get those exposures. Or I have a few girls right now who are only in their high school season. And for some of these girls, high school soccer is a joke. The teams they play suck. The games are
Really?
really easy. Yeah,
Oh,
and a lot of these girls are wearing GPS sensors, and I look at the data for these games. I'm like, yeah, like that workload's low, so we can condition. So that those are some times where I would add in season conditioning, because for like my high school girls, when the workload's so low in these games, and then in a couple months you have to go to your like top level club team and be ready for a showcase. It's like, yeah, we're going to condition during the high school season so you're ready for that showcase, because a lot of girls get detrained during their school season because a lot of these school seasons are kind of a joke.
anybody listening to that, we've been saying it for a while, Strength Coach Network. You just said it again. GPS and other technologies is not designed to tell you and the sport coach to do less.
No.
When used properly, it is literally, it's proof that you can do more. Think about a bank account. Your bank account it shows like, oh, I've got a lot of money in the bank. I can go spend and buy an asset, or I can go buy the house that I've been saving up for. With your GPS, you can take to the coach like, hey, coach, you've actually been prepping these athletes really hard for 3 weeks. If you want to go get after it with a hard training session, go do it. And you just spoke to that, because I think so many of our young strength coaches are like, there was a big day yesterday. We have to do nothing. We need to shut them down. And it's like, no, you need that adaptation to stress, rest, recover, stress, rest,
Yep.
recover. Like,
I agree. And I really like Dr. Tim Gabbard. He says athletes shouldn't run away from stress. They should lean into it. And I'm not saying don't take your recovery days. You need at least 1 to 2 recovery days. But within the training week, you should have a few like moderate to intense sessions to prepare you for the game or these like 4 game tournament weekends. And I don't know if you found this, but I found this with a lot of my girls. Overtraining isn't always the problem, it's detraining, and some of them don't have hard enough team practices. That's been more of a problem than anything. So they're having these easy practices throughout the week, and then all of a sudden they played the best team in the state of Alabama on the road, and their workload just completely spikes that they weren't even ready for. And that's a worse situation, in my opinion.
I just had Coach Bob Alejo on, and he's been in the industry for 4 decades. Like, he was one of the first strength coaches, like high performance manager, like any strength coach that's working in college that has an assistant AD title has a path, like the 7 degrees of separation from Brad Pitt, 7 degrees separation from Bob Alejo. Like, he's pioneered that. And in his episode, he talked about, he's like, we are have such low expectations of athletes and are
Mhm.
so quick to say that we're overtrained, and like the word neurological. He's like, do you know how hard neurological fatigue is, to the point where like you can't contract your muscles and do things? He's like, and we've just thrown this around now to be lazy and to not actually train athletes hard.
I 100% agree. And I think like where overtraining is an actual thing is more in our like youth players who are doing the same thing over and over again, or just playing like soccer year round and like the no days off mindset. Like that's not good. But if you have an athlete who is playing soccer, who's also doing their strength work and having quality sessions, like I think it's okay to push them. But as long as they have those recovery days and we're smart about it, I think that's a really good model. And strength training could count as its own sport technically, because it's a bunch of different muscle groups and in different planes. So yeah, I think there's something to be said about this. I don't think it's always overtraining. I think it's athletes are just underdeveloped in the strength piece of things and just not working multiple muscle groups or getting high speed exposures.
Last thing to wrap up and respect your time. You've written a book, doing podcasts, doing all the things that you're doing. For any coaches, strength coaches out there that are like, how did you get the courage to do this? How did you, like, you're doing all the things I just talked about and, still training athletes? Like, what would be your piece of advice to them that is just like almost looking up to you, like, Erica, how did you do it? I just can't do it. I can't wrap my head around all the things that you're doing. How do you do it? Like, where is all this come from?
I just love it. And I always say, like, the more I do this, I'm going in my 14th year of coaching. The more I get into coaching, I love it each day. But at the same time, it's gotten more challenging as I've gone through my career, because I'm up against like early specialization or parents getting training misinformation online and not knowing what's right for their kid. And I see that as a fun challenge to educate people and just to speak the truth and to get the message out. So that's my motivation, is just to speak truth and let parents know, hey, here's what your kid needs for development and long-term development, so that they perform at a high level, they don't plateau when they're in high school, or they don't quit sports when they're 13, and they stay healthy for the length of their career. And too often I have parents who, when they were young, their kids were young ones, they would ignore my advice, and then they come around when they're 16 and they're like, hey, my girl blew out her ACL. We should have listened to you. And that's kind of what keeps me going, because I want to stop that before that happens. I don't want to tell people I told you so. I want to stop them before they do something stupid and then a crazy injury manifests in high school, and then the girl's done by then. So that's my motivation to keep going. And I do it through my books and my podcast. And the guests I have on, I mean, they've dedicated their lives to female athlete research and training. So I just try and have really great people on the show too, to help spread the word.
Kind of to use an analogy with respect to, athletes doing all sorts of different types of training and it not being monotonous, but the fact that, like, okay, you're writing a book, you have a podcast, training athletes in person, because there's different stimuli and it's not the mundane same thing over and over again, it actually kind of invigorates you, which reminds me of another guest we had on, Anthony Gingerelli, who, he was a strength coach at Seton Hall, training like 7 different teams. He's like, yeah, sure, that might sound a lot to people, but from this hour, I'm this, and then I train this team, and I'm this. And he's like, it's not as boring and monotonous where it's just the same in, same out every single day. And we talked about COVID at the beginning, but that monotony of, being at home and locked up, like, that's what drove people insane.
I agree. I think variety is always a great thing. So humans love variety. They love new stimuli. And then coming back to the injury side of thing, your ligaments love variety. Your ACL likes variety. Your muscles like variety, but also consistency within that. So I think that's my final message.
Amen. Great place to let it go. We're going to have everything linked down below, your podcast, your book. Thank you, Erica, for coming on, and I appreciate you being able to talk with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching that video. If you enjoyed it, click right here for videos just like that, and make sure you click here to subscribe to our channel. Have a great rest of your day.